what a great way for Washington to start the season. A big win with a 56-19 win over Boise State. We saw an offense that we all expected to be explosive do exactly that. And we'll dive into more of the details for both teams here. We start with Washington. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. got his Heisman Trophy campaign off to a good start, 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, a big game for the Washington Huskies quarterback. And when you look at this team, you knew this offense would be explosive. You knew this offense could put up points. And it was just a matter of, honestly, like pick your score, how much. And with the depth that they have at wide receiver, you knew that he would have options downfield. You lose Cam Davis at running back for the year, so that obviously hurt. The rushing attack wasn't really a huge factor, but it didn't exactly need to be because of the passing attack. Now, when you look at this passing attack, not only is their performance exciting for this game specifically, but long term, I think you're looking at a group that could be a nightmare for everyone in the Pac 12. Romeo Dunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk all had big games. And when you look at their production, it tells you one thing. It's that, or it tells you two things, actually. First, that all three are really good. All three can be the lead receiver at any point. And two, that builds into this point of if you lose one of these guys, you should be just fine. And there were other guys that stepped up, didn't have the biggest games like they did, but you just proved that, hey, any one of these guys can be a beast for us. Any one of these guys can go off at any point, and that's scary. That's scary for the rest of the Pac 12. That's scary for anyone that faces this team. And Boise State found out the hard way. Now, Boise State did make some nice plays on defense. It's just that they were few and far between. You're looking at a defense that has talent and just got exposed by a better team. They just got dominated by a passing attack that at times looked effortless. I think that Michael Penix Jr. looked really comfortable in the pocket. He didn't really have to take too many hits and he didn't have to take too much time to find his receiver. He just locked and loaded and let it rip. And the results really speak for themselves. And you look at his production, it tells you everything you need to know. Now, on the flip side, Boise State has a pretty talented quarterback themselves. He's not on Michael Penix Jr.'s level, but Taylor Green really struggled to start the game. 2 interceptions in the first half wasn't ideal. He needed halftime in the worst way. And I think that you're looking at a team that is, I don't know, it's just hard because this doesn't feel like a team that can lose 56-19. But at the same time, that's how good Washington is. And Boise State now can go back to the drawing board and figure out what do we need to do to get better? What went wrong? What do we have to fix? And Taylor Green is going to be part of that solution. Didn't have the best game, but he's going to be a reason why Boise State is still tough to beat. They have plenty of teams that they can send a message to, and the Mountain West is still very much up for grabs. It appears that it's going to be deeper than we expected, especially with teams like Hawaii and San Jose State and Fresno State putting on the performances that they did. You're looking at a conference that is going to be tough. So Boise State can't dwell on this too much. Taylor Green just needs to figure out a way. Because when we talked about this preview, we knew that Boise State needed to throw the ball. And if you can't throw the ball, you're in trouble. And what happened? Boise State couldn't throw the ball and they struggled. Now, in the offensive defense, the defense struggled just as much. They averaged nearly 9.3 yards per play for Washington. So that's not exactly going to help you win football games. That will make your life very difficult. And obviously, it doesn't help when your offense can't score points and your defense spends more time on the field. But I don't know really what to tell you when you're just nothing's going your way. Washington obviously was the better team. They proved that, and there really wasn't much that Boise State could do. Now, on the other side is we don't really talk about Washington's defense. They are talented, but I think that they did their part too. They didn't maybe have the best game, and they were overshadowed obviously by this offense. But this is still a defense that it's probably the X factor for this team. And health in the defense will be the biggest X factor because they have some players that have had injury issues. And if they're able to stay healthy, then it just comes down to can this offense continue its blistering pace and can the defense step up when they need them? Now, when you're looking at specific players that had huge games, Washington's passing attack takes up most of the spots because you look at 450 yards passing and 5 touchdowns, you just know you had a good game. 450 yards is nuts. And we talked about the trio before. Romeo and Dunze, 7 catches, 132 yards, and 1 touchdown. Jalen Polk, 3 catches, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Jalen McMillan, 8 catches, just under 100 yards with 95 and 2 touchdowns. So the passing attack obviously was the highlight. The one highlight where Washington struggled for Boise State's highlight is Ashton Jeanty. We all knew that he had big playability. We all knew that he had star ability, and we saw that on full display. We saw him, and we actually saw Boise State use multiple running back sets, and they actually would line up Jeanty in like a trip slick or in the slot. So now they have unleashed a new weapon that should terrify Mountain West teams or any team that faces them. I mean, Washington didn't have an answer for him. 14 touches, 153 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Probably the lone bright spot for this team. And that was really fun to watch. I think he's a special player. I think that he could have a major impact on this offense. And then that helps out his quarterback too. Because when you look at Taylor Green, we all know Taylor Green could run, average over 7 yards per carry last year, and struggled to run the ball this week, and then also struggled to throw the ball. 19 of 39, 244 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Again, Boise State's success will pretty much go where Taylor Green takes them. If he's able to be an effective passer and open things up for the rushing attack, then I think that he'll be a more effective runner. And then guys like George Holani and Ashton Jeanty will be able to find more running room as well. But until then, you're going to have an offense that relies on the rushing attack, and then you have to figure out how the passing attack works. Now, I will say, in Green's defense, there were times where I mean, at times he had 9 straight incompletions in the first half. So you think, oh, well, he's just very inaccurate. And I think that he was, yes, inaccurate. You threw 20 incompletions, but I also think that he was very close to making some big plays. I mean, there were a couple deep passes that he threw that went off the fingertips of his wide receiver. So it's not like he's really missing, like you're not missing by 2, 3 yards. You're missing by a couple inches. So you're finding ways to get better. That's a way to get better. Find a way to connect with those big plays that will take some pressure off you and off this offense. But when you're competing against a guy like Michael Penix, you have to be perfect. You have to be efficient. And Green just simply wasn't that. When you're going against a guy who's throwing for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, Green kind of contributed to that by throwing interceptions and not being able to connect with his receivers. But that's something that you can fix. Boise State obviously has a lot of work to do. They face a Washington team that wants to be in the playoff, that wants to win a Pac-12 championship. And obviously it went Washington's way. But I think both teams still have a bright future going forward in 2023.